tuned in to Cardinal Sin and, where I, Cardinal Sin, discuss important pop culture news, reviews, movies, genre fiction, comics, storytelling, and just about anything else with my fellow YouTubers. Get ready for informed conversation about what's going on, for as your humble host, I rely on my guests to provide the talking points, whether it's a panel or just me one-on-one with a friend. So get ready for Cardinal Sin and...
Greetings, followers. It is I, Cardinal Sin, and I would like to welcome you to the Freedom Convoy debate, and we will be commencing shortly. I am your host and moderator, Cardinal Sin. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, and please promote the debate, retweet, and help us gather a healthy-sized audience for this groundbreaking event. Tensions have been building around Canada's Freedom Convoy, essentially requiring truckers coming back into Canada from the United States to show proof of COVID-19 vaccination or be quarantined for 14 days. We're going to get into the reasons, as the subtleties of the situation may be poorly known by Americans and other citizens worldwide. I would like to thank both Canadian Spider-Man and Rodd Thunderheart for being here, and we're about to set forth the rules of tonight's debate. We will ask the chat to voice their positions beforehand as a baseline to measure which side won the debate once it has concluded. I would like to point out that neither I nor the debaters are medical professionals. Please speak to your doctor before making any decisions regarding your health. Today, earlier, I watched 2 live streams of the Freedom March in Ottawa, Canada, and was pleasantly surprised to see people peacefully protesting, holding Canadian flags, and being incredibly kind and polite to one another. I didn't learn much aside from that, but still, all countries could learn something from Canada's peaceful, non-confrontational protest. Here are the rules for tonight's debate. This will be a friendly debate between Canadian Spider-Man, who is for the proposition, and Rodd Thunderheart, who is against the proposition. This debate will hopefully help us understand the implications of the proposition. The side that won the coin toss, Rodd, will have 15 minutes to make an opening statement, after which the other side, Spidey, will have 15 minutes to make his. There will be a 10-minute follow-up/rebuttal period for each side, followed by a question and answer period from both the chat and from me, Cardinal Sin. Following the Q&A, each side will have a 15-minute period for closing remarks, after which we will ask the chat whether they were 1, informed by the debate, and number 2, which side they think won them over from their initial position. And we also have a number 3 if the members of the audience are still undecided either way. The most number of moved members of the audience, one way or the other, determines the winner. Both Canadian Spider-Man and Rodd Thunderheart must agree to these rules before the debate, and there will be a zero-tolerance policy on debate members straying from their positions and or becoming emotional, raising their voices, etc. that will be enforced by me, the debate moderator. Audience members should keep score, write down what they think are convincing points, and mark down debaters that break the debate format as set down herein. Use your notes to help you decide which way, if at all, you have been swayed by the debate's end. Both Canadian Spider-Man and Rodd Thunderheart engage in this debate as 2 friends, 2 Canadians, and regular panel members on the Cardinal Sin channel, and full disclosure, they are both friends of mine. We will begin shortly as soon as each member of the audience enters a 1 in the chat if they are for the proposition, a 2 in the chat if they are against the proposition, and a 3 in the chat if they are undecided. Before we begin, members of the chat, please enter your stance now. Again, if you are for the proposition, please enter a 1 in the chat. If you are against the proposition, please enter a 2 in the chat. And if you are undecided, please enter a 3 into the chat. Moderators, please keep track of these numbers so that we can use them to compare with at the end of the debate, and make sure and poll the audience as the audience grows. And audience, please put those numbers into the chat now. And I will welcome Rodd Thunderheart and Canadian Spider-Man. Greetings, gentlemen.
Howdy, howdy.
How are you both today?
I'm very good. Just ran 4 miles and 2 45-degree hills.
Cool. Canadian Spider-Man seems to be muted still.
There, how's that?
Much better.
How's the volume level there,
You
Cardinal?
sound great.
That's about right. Yeah.
Hi, I said hello, hi, and hi, Cardinalson.
Hello.
Yeah.
I wanted to go for a run. That was my plan. I just did a quick live stream this afternoon down by the creek, and I was going to go for a run, but then my brother just came over, and we just got into a heated debate about, I mentioned I was coming on the show with both of you, and we nearly came to blows out there, and that's why I was, forgive me.
Well, I'm glad you got all that out of your system.
We did. It was family matters. I meant to come here earlier and be early, but we nearly came to blows. So, yeah.
I'd like to
Yep,
also...
it's all out of the system. We're friends. Rodd and I
That's
agree on much more than we disagree with. Let's just get that out there. And no matter what is said, we are both winners because we both agree on much more than we disagree with. I can say that with certainty. Rodd? Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'd like to ask that anyone that has questions of the debaters, please go ahead and put them into the chat so that I can use those later when we're in our question and answer period. We're going to go ahead and say hi to some folks that are in the chat. Rambling Canuck, Mrs. Canuck, Gap Stargate is here. Tessa D777 is here. Hello. Herc130 is here. Greetings. And it looks like we have some chatter. Herc130 is here. Darius Munchausen is here. Hello. My brother Ari is here. The lovely Sherry is here. Rule is here. And
Andy Masterson is in there.
Andy Masterson is here. Greetings. Mr. MH is here. Greetings. Low Spec
Howdy,
Linux
howdy.
Laptop is here. Yes, one would be if you are for the proposition, that would be for the Freedom Convoy. And a 2 would be if you are against the proposition of the Freedom Convoy. And a 3 would be if you are undecided, as Herc130 has put into the chat.
Right. So
the proposition is for the Freedom Convoy, and as the debate goes forward, we will better understand it, which is the whole point of today's debate. We also
So
have...
it's not your 4
Zach
mandates. One
here.
is not your 4 mandates.
Hang on, please. We also have Zach's here, and we have more greetings. The Equalizer is here. Hail. And Tolfer is here. He's put a 1 into the chat. And I think that's what we have so far. And because Rodd won the coin toss, Rodd will begin. But before we do, again, I just wanted to thank the both of you for being here and for helping get this Freedom Convoy debate in a way that we can understand it from the point of view of two Canadians, two friends, and two friends of mine. Mm-hmm. And for some reason now experiencing a difficult problem with my phone. So please hang tight. And while we are waiting, please don't forget everyone to retweet my tweet and or to just promote the show in general. Get the link out there, etc. This has never happened to my phone before. I have no idea why it's happening now. There we go.
Just tweeted it out and put it out on Facebook.
Thank you.
Yep.
And we're deaf. Why are we deaf?
No, I just needed to be able to find my timer. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Rodd Thunderheart won the coin toss, so he has 15 minutes for opening remarks, and I'm going to go ahead and make him big here. And Rodd, please make your opening remarks now.
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing everybody needs to understand is that this convoy was actually started by Pat King and Les Michelson. Both these guys started the Wexit Party, Western Exit, i.e. separation, party back in 2019. This was when Jason Kenney, got elected as Premier of Alberta. But Kenney didn't go far enough, and therefore Michelson and King turned around and started their Western separatist movement. And in fact, they even got made fun of on This Hour's 22 Minutes, which is a Canadian political satire show, which they pointed out, which was a real thing. They actually had the Wexit Party meeting at a dance hall called the Boot Scootin' Boogie place in eastern Edmonton, which is no better way to prove that. Well, they're Western hillbillies. I mean, Pat King is a truck driver, and he wanted to go with separation, i.e., Alberta separating from Canada, which is just about impossible. As I said, there's a whole filing cabinet of reasons as to why that's incredibly impossible for Alberta to separate from Canada, because just physically we're landlocked. We're not even near a shore, which means we can't get any goods out to move to ship to other countries. Which means we'd have to go back into Canada. Secondly, getting Indigenous approval from that would be nearly impossible, because I'm Native myself. I know they would not support separation from Canada. And then, of course, being with the Indigenous graves discovered at residential schools. But that's a different issue entirely. The point being, the natives already have their own issues with the convoy. I do understand why there are some natives who have actually joined the convoy. But again, I'm having trouble reconciling with the fact that Pat King. It's founded by two separatists, and they actually started a freedom convoy in 2019 as well. And I was trucking back then too. And I happen to be just smart enough to be able to look. I'm sorry, I'm not bragging on. Oh, you're smart. But I happen to be bright enough to be able to, holy crap. I looked down Highway 2 south of Edmonton, and I saw like a whole swath of vehicles headed north. And I'm like, okay, I'm not taking Highway 2 heading north into Canada, into Edmonton. You know, again, they drove around. Even my own boss, from where I was working at the time, they didn't support the Freedom Convoy in 2019, which again, that convoy was supporting Western separation. And again, there's just so many other reasons why you can't. Another reason, by the way, is you'd also have to get the Queen's approval. While we are no longer dominion of the British Empire, we have now become our own country. But we still have to get approval from the Governor General, i.e., the Queen's the Queen's appointed representative in the Canadian government. And anyway, getting back to it, the whole movement is founded by Western separatists, and now they're, as I said, now that they've moved in, well, they finally got to Ottawa, and they've been there now for just about 2 weeks, going on 2 weeks now. It's the whole thing too is that sooner or later, Pat King, or even Tamara Litch, who, by the way, is like, she's the one who's supposedly being the accountant and moving the money on the GoFundMe or whatever the Christian fundraising site is. And I'm still waiting for the moment for him to turn around and say, we want to separate from Canada. Look how many support us. And the other thing, it's just disturbing because they've made no actual goal of what their convoy represents. They just put it under like the rah, freedom, rah, and it's more of a mask to basically appeal to everybody, and it's basically, it's like, well, we want to get rid of mask mandates. Well, we want to get rid of vaccine mandates. But I mean, like, come on. First of all, and these statistics are pretty much proven. 90% of Canadian truckers, and when I say truckers, I'm talking those who are actually working, are vaccinated. So it's really not even an issue right now. Secondly, the other thing is, even if you're not vaccinated, and then you go to the States, well, guess what? You're still going to be pulled over, and then you're going to, are you vaccinated? No. Well, then get back to Canada. That's how, I mean, you can't just sit here and hold the Canadian government hostage for that. And look, I don't like Trudeau any more than the next person, especially out west here, But I mean, on the other side of the coin, my generation grew up respecting who your leader is, even if you didn't vote for him. And I understand that, he's still done a pretty decent amount of things, including the CERB, the Canada Emergency Relief Benefit, which was basically to support people to stay home during COVID protocol, and along with a few other things. But I mean, I won't deny that I am kind of embarrassed by the fact that he's hiding out from this. I do agree with a lot of people out there that, man, address this issue. Don't sit there in your house and and hide. Like, yes, I absolutely agree with everyone that his cowardice is showing. But I mean, for the time being, he's the elected represented leader of our country, and I respect his views, even if I don't agree with them 100%. But ultimately, I'm disturbed by the convoy, also because they've been clogging up the entire downtown streets, and it's quite surprising to see what kind of chaos it's caused down there. And including, and I really feel for the people there too, was the nonstop horn blaring of like 10 days, 2 weeks. And Pat King, even, I saw this from Pat Steven Seagal's channel. He put out a brief message, which was directly from Pat King, and he explained that he was basically begging the rest of his truckers to, please don't blow your horn anymore, because if you do, then that's grounds for arrest because the city of Ottawa has declared a state of emergency, and therefore the police can now enact with practically lethal force. Practically, because they're still Canadian. I don't care how you listen, but which there's another point in that, but I'll get back to that another later. I'll reserve that for later. But they've been nonstop blaring their horns, and Pat King made a desperate attempt to try and get them to stop blowing their horns, which, from what I understand, it did stop. But then, as I understand it, there's still a lot of guys who just still jumped on board of the horn blaring. And I'll tell you one thing: a truck horn ranges between 100 and 150 decibels, and yes, it's designed to get your attention. It's pretty loud. It will like, but it's not designed for nonstop bah, 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 and those poor buggers downtown Ottawa, in part of Pat King's speech, he was, he actually became even mocking. He was just like, I'm not laughing, you're laughing, because the city, because there's actually a class action lawsuit now against the organizers of the convoy because they have been blaring their horns nonstop, and their horns are not meant to be, and B, there's some residential, like, city buildings, like condos and apartments down there. There was even actually violence of two guys who claimed to be from the convoy because they were angry at some residents of a certain building, and they actually brought in fire bricks and tried to set the building on fire. They even duct taped the door entrance shut. And luckily, a passerby actually managed to wrench the door open and grab the fire extinguisher and managed to extinguish the flames. Thank God for that. But I have to say, though, I'm for the vaccine mandate. I've been jabbed twice, and just to basically sum up, I'm for the mandate because, there's no other way. There's no other way around it. And both statistics and hospitals have stated that their ICUs are clogged with those who have been unvaccinated. Now, statistics have shown that there are, some people who have been vaccinated are still in there. Yes, but the majority are the ones who are unvaccinated, and therefore, I have to say that I stand for the vaccine mandate. Here's one other quick thing. I'll say this. This is one thing that does irk me about the vaccine, and that is that it's monetized, because the man who developed the polio vaccine, the very first thing he did was he rushed off to the patent office and he sold it for $1. So literally everybody, every little pharmaceutical company would be able to manufacture it. And the whole reason why is because he didn't want it monetized or be making money off it. All he wanted was to get rid of polio, and he did. And for that reason, I will say that, like, as I said, this is what really burns my barn, and that is that there are pharmaceutical companies making billions off of other people's misery, and that's probably what bothers me the most. Unfortunately, I don't see any other way out of it, and I completely invite Spidey to counter that. And anyway, I give the floor up.
All right. I will go ahead and invite Canadian Spider-Man to begin his opening remarks. and we will do so now.
Nice cup.
And Canadian Spider-Man, you should take off your mute and know that your clock is already running.
Yes, yep, absolutely. But I will take, because it's worth it, I will take a second to promote Midnight to Midnight. And thank you, Cardinal Sin, for letting Rodd and I talk about this. Yeah, that's fantastic. And
Yes,
cheers,
please.
Rodd.
Thank you.
I think it's very
The
important.
first point I'd like to open up with is...
And remember, this is not a rebuttal to Rodd. This is just your opening statement.
Yep, I understand.
You have 14 minutes and 20 seconds.
I took politics in university, actually. It was my minor. I was that kind of a geek, yeah. International politics and the Canadian Constitution were two things I specialized in. But I'm certainly not an expert. I'm not a medical expert. I'm not an expert. I have a lot more to learn. Believe me, there's more that I don't know than I do know. So, yeah, I will say, this is not the rebuttal, you're right, but I will say, if Alberta, on one comment, Rodd, you made, if Alberta
Opening
did try
statement,
to...
please. We'll have a rebuttal after
Yep.
the opening statements.
Yes, this is not a rebuttal to the debate topic. This is a statement agreeing with him. If Alberta tried to leave, Canada would show so much love, they'd have a hard time leaving. So we both agree they'd have a hard time leaving. My points are very simple. Very simple. The truckers, and it's not only the truckers. I think video evidence, live streams, there's hundreds and hundreds of hours of live stream footage. Anyone can go and watch Viva Fray. Autowalks is another good one. Zot, Z-O-T. These people are live streaming 24/7 down from Ottawa, and they are demonstrating to me that the protest started with truckers, and now it is expanded to Canadians of all beliefs, all spheres, all shapes, all colors, all sizes. And they have a big semi-truck out in front of the Parliament buildings that states their three demands is a bit much, but there are three requirements to stop the protest. And most people that I've seen on the live footage, and I've watched hundreds of hours, maybe hundreds of hours, live streams, unedited, that's key. It is unedited. It is as you take it. You can see these live streams, especially Viva Fray, F-R-E-I. And the three requirements that they have to be met so that they can end the protests immediately. One is the end of all mandates. The second one is the end of all vaccine requirements and passports. And the third is the end of the divisive rhetoric. That's it. Those three things. And I think they're very clear. And most people that, if not all, I'd like to say all, but I'm not sure, most people that are interviewed by these YouTube live streamers will repeat those three things. Now, the reason why, and those are the protesters in Ottawa, and don't get them confused with the people blocking the bridges. They also are protesting. There are many different groups of Canadians not affiliated with Ottawa that are protesting basically the same three things. They're just not connected with Ottawa. I've attended protests over the last year, so this is not something that just started. Those three things we've been asking for well over a year. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. We all did it. We all washed our groceries. We all did everything. 2 weeks. 2 months we did it. 1 year. Some of us didn't do it that long. So for at least 1 year, we've been writing letters to Parliament. We've been protesting peacefully at all the major cities across Canada. People, if you think for a second that it started with this. No. People say, well, they should go through the legal process and they're right. Yeah, it started with protests last year. I attended them in a lot of Canadian cities. There have been legal actions. There have been letters written to MPs, to everybody who might be able to answer questions about the mandate. So this is not just all of a sudden spur the thing. The steps have been followed. And I think the biggest, getting back to the main point, let's draw it all back into the main points. End the vaccine mandates. Why? The people that are protesting, including the people in Ottawa and separate protests at the border crossings and all across Canada, the reason why they want to end the mandates is they strongly believe that the damage to the Canadian economy from the mandates, the damage to the Canadian social fabric, mental state, family structure, the damage to people in business, and March 31st, businesses, if you own a dentist practice or a doctor's practice or a physiotherapist practice, I think it includes them as well, in British Columbia, if you're not vaccinated, if you do not get the injection, you will be forced to shut down. So the damage caused, the economic damage caused by the mandates and the damage to Canadians' lives, and yes, it's possibly a minority of Canadians, but still enough that the damage is so big that it needs to be stopped now by any means possible, and at least let's stop and reevaluate and examine. We should at least be getting data about how much damage has been done from the government. You're talking about if we're to choose, we need all the information. That's what a democratic society is. You need information to make an informed choice. Right now, the choice to get vaccinated, it's not even, because there's a huge pressure from the government. Financial, you'll lose your jobs, you can't go and do things. It's not an even choice. It's not a fair choice. It's not at that point, it's not even, it's not a choice. You either lose your job or you get vaxxed. That's not a choice. Anyway, so that's the one thing. The damage caused by the mandates is so big that it needs to be addressed immediately. And even if a temporary blockade or temporary protests are going to be disruptive, by the way, that is the point of protest, to be disruptive. And I have points for the rebuttal later on. But the damage from the mandates is so big, so drastic, that and we're not even provided with studies from information about how much damage is being done socially, economically, mentally. We have sporadic information, but we need it to be shown to us clearly and plainly by the government in order to justify what they're doing. We haven't seen any of that. The second point is the vaccine mandates must end. And the reasoning behind that is Section 7 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the 1982 Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Section 7, and I can pull it up and read it if you wish, but it basically says everyone has the rights to personal security, bodily autonomy. So I have the right to choose what I do with my body. I can't imagine anyone disagreeing with that. Some people are, though. But you can disagree with it, that's fine. But the Charter says I have bodily autonomy. And so it also says that it is illegal for the government to force people to do things that they don't want to do with their bodies. And it also includes, by force, it's not only physical. They're not holding us down and injecting us yet. No. But force also can include the threat of losing your job, economic force, social force. Our Prime Minister got up in front of cameras and as not just as a regular Joe Blow, but as a person of influence, our leader said, and this is on video, he said the people that aren't vaccinated are often misogynists, racists, and don't believe in science. So that is, you're turning people against us. That is social pressure. That's social force. You have economic force, social force, and that is the Section 7 says that's illegal. It's an emergency. No, it doesn't matter. It's illegal. Finally, the third thing they want is no more division, no more divisive rhetoric from the government. and the news agencies. And absolutely, Canadians have been divided. We've been scared of each other for the last 2 years, and the protesters want us to be able to get information from our government without the name calling, without the shameful language. We just want facts and science and unbiased information. And the CBC has gotten funding to the tune of, what, they got a COVID bailout of 600 million. They have millions of dollars paid to them for the advertising, because CBC does the advertising for COVID, all the COVID public information. They get paid for that. They get all kinds of money for that, as does 99% of the media. The journalists in Canada get funding from the government for something. Well, I think, how can you be neutral? I'm getting paid by this person. How can I report objectively by them, about them? So our Constitution guarantees a separation between media and the government, and that bothers me that that's not happening here. So we need non-divisive language coming from our media and our government. The Prime Minister doesn't want to meet with these Canadians. He calls them terrorists. They are Canadians. And if you've watched live footage of any of the hundreds of hours of live footage down in Ottawa, maybe there's one small incident with a package. Okay, that's one incident. There's tens of thousands of people tens of thousands of people across the country that are protesting. And that's one incident? Come on. And one Confederate flag. What does the Confederacy have to do with Canadians? Nothing. And the photographer that captured that image just happened to be a personal photographer for Prime Minister Trudeau. Funny. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Hour after hour after hour of the video footage you watch of the protesters is peaceful. They've kept emergency lanes open. They've abided by every law put down in front of them. They stopped the honking. And I have a rebuttal for that. Yeah, they stopped the honking. They did, for the most part, I think, otherwise face tickets. They stopped the honking and when they were asked to. They're keeping emergency lanes open. People of Ottawa are supporting them, because you hear story after story, and Ottawa citizen after Ottawa citizen saying on camera, we support them, we welcome them. You hear truckers saying that they're just being handed money by citizens of Ottawa through their windows, their offers to do their laundry, of come and have a shower at my house. Like, you hear trucker after trucker after trucker saying this. You hear Ottawa citizens themselves saying, supporting the truckers, that they support this, that they realize that if we don't stand for our rights now, if we let the government start deciding what we should do for our bodies or not, and they are forcing us. They are forcing us economically and socially. They are forcing us. Every federal worker, if you're not vaccinated, you're fired. That's force, and that's illegal according to our charter. Yeah, that's a problem. And if we don't stop this now, it's a slippery slope. Okay, I have many friends that they don't exercise, and their diet is not good. Some of these friends, their diet is so poor that they have now had to been put on heart medications, like many Canadians, because of a lack of diet by choice and a lack of exercise. So this is a slippery slope we're talking about. These people go in and they use up hospital resources. Cardiac problems is one of the biggest killer, if not the biggest killer, of men, Rodds and my age, and Cardinal sins in Canada. It's got to be one of the highest, and I think it is the highest. I could be wrong on that, but it's certainly one of the highest. These people are costing resources from the hospitals. That's what the government could say, and they have studies to show this. So what's to say that the government can't start forcing them, okay, now you're only allowed 2 cheeseburgers a week, or now you have to pay a tax because you're costing our hospitals extra money. I mean, you joke that that's not possible, but the things that I'm seeing now, I would have thought were impossible 2 years ago. You can't go to and sit down in a restaurant, show us your papers. You know, I'm a Canadian citizen. I am not free. There are countries in the world that don't care if you're vaccinated. They will welcome you into their countries. We need tourism. If you're not vaccinated, that's fine. We don't have any COVID restrictions here. I'm welcome into those countries. My Canadian government is saying that I cannot leave Canada, that I'm a prisoner of Canada because I'm not vaccinated. That's friggin' North Korea shit. And that is why these protesters, by and far, are law-abiding, but they are willing, and I think they should do whatever is required, short of violence.
All right, that's
stop
time for opening statements. Thank you both.
Thank you.
I appreciate.
And Rod, cheers, buddy. Cheers for doing this, Cardinal.
Yeah.
Opening statements for the both of you, and as members of the chat roll in, please don't forget to put into the chat a 1 if you are for the proposition of the Freedom Convoy, a 2 if you are against it, and a 3 if you are undecided. And Rod, you are now going to have 10 minutes for your rebuttal / follow-up statement beginning now.
Yeah, okay. Well, as far as doctors and nurses getting, having to close their offices, and hey, I'll even admit, my own doctor, he himself wouldn't get the vaccine. That's his choice. So he actually had to move about 20 miles away to another town that allowed him, the freedom to practice and his medicine, and that's fine. I get it, and he's a good doctor. I appreciate him. I understand. Because it's funny. I had slightly higher than normal blood pressure, 131/90, which, he recognized, well, you're a big guy though, and I said, I'm like, well, yeah, but I still run every day, just about every day. And I still lift weights. Maybe maybe it's just simply 131 is my norm. I don't know, because I've had it down, because before it was down to 127, which is, pretty much normal. So that, anyway, besides that, the point is that I have a good doctor who understands my body and my choices, methods, whatever, but I understand, however, though, that, well, let's face it, sometimes that's the cross they bear. When they went to school for 8 years to learn medicine, I have 2 cousins. Both of them are doctors, and both of them got the vaccine. And because they know that as a health professional, you have a standard that you must uphold for the rest of the country. And let's see. Plus, and here's another thing too. I get it. People are just kind of freedom, but come on. 2 years ago, they declared a health emergency, which, i.e. safety of the rest of the country. So I get it, and let's face it, there are certain people who, they're not, they're vaccine, they're unable to get the vaccine, and I can understand that, because they're immunocompromised. In which case, that's where you just have to sit around until science comes up with something that they can that they can take. They've already developed pre-COVID medications, which actually simply help boost your body's own immune system, which is definitely a help. Because I have a good friend too that she she has breast implants, and it's been a tough road for her, because she's actually in a shaky area where in her life, where unfortunately now at her age, the breast implant, this is the 80s breast implants too, that have been begun to leak, and therefore she has become immunocompromised. And now she can't get the vaccine. I understand that. That's why I say, okay, fine, just wait till science catches up. As I said, I just wanted to briefly shift back to my previous point, which is I have been infuriated with the fact that yeah, the vaccine is monetized, and there are companies making billions because countries have to pay them billions in order to stock the vaccine, and that I do not believe is right. However, anyway, but forging back, I understand. I see people like, but I mean, like, I find that to be a little bit a little bit facetious in terms of that. Oh God, this is North Korea. Yeah, right. This is North Korea. Give us our freedom, demanded the truckers as they drove around Canada freely and without being arrested or pulled over or anything. Yeah, give us back our freedom. And when you already have freedom, that you have the freedom to protest. I get that. But A, your point's been made, and B, the mandates are pretty much being dismantled within the next few weeks anyway. So really, did they even do anything aside from like pollute the atmosphere? And as I said, I was even a little bit brought into it until I looked into who started it up. But it just ugh. when I look at it as being founded by white separatists, my personal feeling is just, I see how it appealed to everybody. It did, and I see how everybody caught into the fervor. But I mean, what's right isn't always what's popular. What's popular isn't always what's right. And I mean, if everybody's going to jump off a cliff, are you going to jump off the cliff? Which, I mean, I get that, because the same argument could be used for getting the vaccine. But I mean, like, it's already been proven that it works. It's already been proven that, like, those who are not vaccinated are clogging up the ICUs. My own brother actually has a double hernia operation that he still has been unable to get because, surprise, there's people in the ICU with COVID who, well, had they gotten the vaccine, they'd be at home. I also had another quick point here. Let's see. Yeah, as a trucker, I have to obey company mandates. I have to wear a hard hat, a safety vest, and steel-toed boots when I go to a company and pick up something heavy. And because I get it, because like people can get hurt. That's the whole reason why you have those mandates, in order for everyone's safety. So how is that any different than like getting the vaccine? And yeah, and also, I just like to say too, body autonomy must stop where a health emergency is declared. It's the same reason. I mean, like way back in 1970, when two politicians were kidnapped, one was even murdered. That's why Pierre Trudeau. Yeah, by the way, that was Justin's dad. Pierre Trudeau invoked the War Measures Act, which is basically the Patriot Act back in 1970. All personal freedom stopped. Police were able to stop anybody with, but I mean, the police, however, were also very very non-judgmental. Like they used it sparingly, because really it was more for the investigation into those who had kidnapped Pierre Laporte and Robert. I can't remember his last name, but anyway, so two politicians. One was killed. The other one was returned safely, thank God. But that's just it. When we live in a country, a democracy, or even when you live in a city, there are times when you must surrender your personal freedoms when it comes to the safety of others. I mean, in 1987, there was a F4 tornado that tore through Edmonton, and the premier even declared a state of emergency, and the mayor especially, and which, yeah, people's freedom. People didn't have the freedom to go back to their own house or shift through the rubble, because that's where looting is born. And that's another example of why you have to surrender your personal freedoms in the event of an emergency of any sort. Anyway, that's everything. That's my rebuttal.
All right. Thanks, Rod. Canadian Spider-Man, your rebuttal / follow-up period begins now.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, well said, Rod. Yeah, thanks. I'm not sure I'll need the entire 15 minutes, but I usually don't have too much for
I'm sorry, it's 10 minutes.
10 minutes, right, yes. The first point I think that I took from your opening remarks, Rod, were that Pat King and a group of separatists are responsible for starting this movement, and yeah, I think we can both agree there that we don't want anyone who's a separatist or anyone that has intolerance of other races. Allegedly, I need to see proof before I can accuse anyone of anything. However, were it be Pat King or were it be anybody else, and I'm not saying he is, he isn't, I have no proof of anything, but to your point, I think we can both agree we wouldn't want anyone involved with that sort of background or mindset to have any involvement in any political movements in Canada. I certainly want that, so I support you on that. However, I think that the fact that hundreds of hours of live video footage shows, and the amount of donations given multiple times to the GoFundMe and the Give Send Go, foundations from many separate individual parties. The support for this movement, the very point is, it doesn't matter who started the movement. It has become a movement that is supported by many different Canadians. A minority, perhaps not, but perhaps a minority, but a significant portion of Canadians, everyday Canadians of every shape, every size. And Pat King may or may not have led to the impetus to start this, but it has transformed way beyond that now. So that's a moot point. That doesn't matter who started it. We have to deal with what it is now. And fortunately, to my understanding, it's not a group of hate-filled racists that are on camera giving all of these passionate speeches. It seems to be, from all the video footage that I've seen unedited, they seem to be just reasonable Canadians. I mean, they were playing road hockey. I mean, some people are calling them terrorists, and I want to make a quick point. That word and the N-word, you know, the guys in Germany with the mustaches and the funny, yeah, that word is thrown around way too much, and so is the word terrorists. All right? That is thrown around way too lightly. They had bouncy castles. There's almost no violence. No video. Show me a video. Show me a video. I haven't seen any. You had Ottawa citizen after Ottawa citizen walking by, giving live testimony, saying this is the safest they've ever felt their city has been. And the cleanest. And the cleanest. So calling them terrorists is way out of line. And that is, again, name-calling. And that is social influence. That is social force. You're using social pressure by your choice of language to influence people's minds. And that is disingenuous, and it is not permitted by our Constitution for our leaders to do that. So yeah, it doesn't point us on that one point. Doesn't matter who started it. It has grown and transformed into something that is supported by Canadians of all races and nations and colors in every province and every territory.
All right, Spidey, thank you for your rebuttal / follow-up. And I will give the floor to Rodd Thunderheart for his 10-minute rebuttal / follow-up beginning now.
Okay. Well, yeah, I've looked at a lot of that freedom footage, as well as I mean, I even appeared on. Well, I didn't appear, but I mean, like I popped into his chat, Fat Steven Seagal's chat. Of again, I get it. The freedom, people technically is really more of a party, and I do. But there was still, I don't care what anybody says there, because there was still the odd truck horn, bah, bah, but then they did shut up. But every so often there was still somebody who's like, But I have to go back to the words of Roberto Salas. He actually, and in case anybody's wondering who Roberto Salas is, there were some absolutely famous photographs of Fidel Castro in the early parts of his regime. And there's some iconic photos of him and Che Guevara, lighting a cigar. And again, they're just absolutely iconic photos to this day. Anybody who has, I mean, he took just those pictures alone, he could probably live for the rest of his life. But instead, he still kept kept photographing. But anyway, in his words, he once said, he said that the camera is the biggest liar in the world. And the reason why is because the mind that's behind the instrument is what goes into the making of the image. And therefore, I can't 100% trust trust the images that I see, because I sit back and I think, well, okay, but I mean, like, if they're looking for good images, good video of happy people just having a great time and and all that, they'll find it. If they find lousy footage, are they going to show it? No. I mean, are they going to want to show it? No, because that disputes their image of a happy trucker convoy. Also, what else? There's been much support outside Canada, which on the GoFundMe and then the Christian fundraising, whatever the friggin' all that, which it's also been very highly understood that the average amount of some of those donations have averaged like several several thousands of dollars, sometimes even hundred thousands. Now, you look at GoFundMe, and then like you see it what they call a grassroots movement. Then like a grassroots movement is like $5, $10, $20, maybe $50 donations at best. But when you see like several $1,000s being donated, you honestly have to become awfully suspicious of the source, because when you look at when I mean, like, we're in basically our version of the Great Depression. Do you think any small people have the money to be able to donate several $1,000s? No. This is not a grassroots movement. This is somebody from outside the country trying to influence. And that's another thing. These donations are coming from outside the country, which again, foreign influence. Therefore, and that is what the government is heavily against, because that's the whole reason why a country exists. Because a country is meant for people and its government to make its own decisions, not be influenced by foreigners. And therefore, I have to call in the amount of numbers that I've seen on what's coming in on the FundMe, as to be very suspicious, especially when Ted Cruz and Donald Trump are on your side. And That's my rebuttal.
All right, Rodd, thank you very much. We will begin with a question and answer period. I'd like to begin with a few questions for Rodd. And when I ask questions, both of you, please feel free to answer as long as you're not answering over one another. I'd like to point out, Rodd, that the things that boost one's immune system don't prevent the contraction of the virus. So, as this was founded by white separatists, is your argument that the Freedom Convoy is a distraction from the issues?
You know what? I don't yeah, actually, that's kind of some of my point. I do have to say, it's a little worrisome. And, yeah, you know, but here's the other thing, too. Whoever's in charge, and as I said, I've already said who is in charge. I think they're biding their time till they state what they really want to state. But, you know, the other thing, oh yeah, well, the other thing too is like it's foreign influence. I find, you know, I mean that's what I say. I mean, like this is where I look at the donations. I find them highly suspect when, you know, when several $1,000s are being donated, and this is from, and you know, I mean because like the average person does not have several $1,000s, so I'm sitting here looking back at that and being like, I don't know. But yeah, anyway.
And I take your point about you think that this is not a grassroots exercise, but it's astroturfing by outside political interests. That certainly makes an important distinction. Canadian Spider-Man, do you have a follow-up to any of those questions?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I have seen some Canadian politicians and in fact some newscasters imply that perhaps Russian money has been used, or perhaps Trump money has been used. Speaking of conspiracy theories, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, of course, I'm sure that some organizations with some interests have donated to the fund. No doubt. But when you look at the numbers, the amount that they raised, $10 million in each case for the Give, Send, Go, which is just about that much now, and the GoFundMe.
But that's foreign money, and that's illegal.
That is not what you should be looking at. And you need proof before you start accusing and saying things like that. You can't say that without proof. In this day and age, I'm sorry. I want to believe you, but you cannot say that without proof. If I may.
That's the whole reason why the GoFundMe got shut down. Because it was foreign influence. That's all I want to say. Just saying.
The numbers, what I was saying was the number, 10 million, isn't important. The number of donors, the number of individual donations is important. There's a ton of, what was it, 50? I want to say 53,000, but I could be wrong on that. But there was thousands of different individual donations by Canadians all over the place. It's not like there was like 6 big donations of millions of dollars. No, there were some large donations. I have no doubt. You're probably right. No doubt. That happens on both sides of the political spectrum with the conservatives and liberals. You know, everybody does that. That's part of the game. You're right. You're absolutely right. That happens. But the amount of money raised isn't the key thing. The number of individual donors, that tells the story. That tells the story right there. And the interviews among the people of Ottawa, walking around the streets, the people from all over, they are the grassroots. It would be hard, I guess my point, and I'll keep it short, my point is, it would be hard watching the live, unedited video feeds of hundreds of hours. It would be hard to watch all that and not think it's a grassroots. And judging by the amount of protests in every little town in Canada, that's not a grassroots organization.
I have a lot of trucker friends who are still working, and they got vaccinated. And they are not, and they do not support this movement, like me.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm still never going to be okay with the government telling me I have to get an injection or lose my jobs or not be able to leave my country to a country that's willing to go on vacation, to travel. Yeah, I love travel, man. It's my life. And I can't, there are countries that'll let me in whether I'm vaxxed or not. I'm healthy. I've got antibodies. I had COVID. I have antibodies. The government hasn't given any information about whether antibodies, if you've had COVID, are we testing for antibodies? Because you're good to travel? I don't know. I haven't seen any information. And if we're gonna make choices with informed consent, I would like to see. I would expect our government to provide information. Okay, those of you that have had COVID, sorry to hear that you had COVID, but now you have antibodies. Are you as good as a vaccinated person? Are you better? Are you not as good? Let's see the information. Let's have a discussion about it, preferably in Parliament, using statistics and data and not emotion. I would expect to see that as in a democratic country as part of the parliamentary process. These restrictions are so harsh and are so restrictive and has caused damage and has caused job loss that we have to debate it in Parliament and let's get this information. We haven't even talked about that. Maybe you know about, if you've had COVID, you have antibodies. So are you in the same class as a vaccinated person? We haven't even talked about that. That's suspicious to me. As a nation, how come we haven't talked about that? That should be part of the informed consent. And there's a lot we haven't talked about. And I am not responsible for another person's safety. Even during an emergency, the Constitution still applies. Even during emergency measures, the Constitution still applies. The government cannot force me to get an injection because for someone else's safety. In a democratic society, the very foundation principle is that we're each responsible for our own safety, not someone else's. If you choose to get vaccinated, I will give my tax dollars to help you get vaccinated. You can wear 10 masks if you want. I won't ever tell you not to.
Rodd?
Okay, but look up, do yourself a favor and look up Bill Phillips. He's a Facebook friend of mine, but I knew him also because I entered his Muscle Media Physique Transformation Challenge in 1998, and then the Body for Life, which became the ultimately the Body for Life Challenge in 1999. And both times I did pretty good. I was even quite impressed with the fact that I actually got a personal letter from him in the first time I completed the contest, because I was 8 months from coming back from being attacked by four drunken individuals. But no, anyway, Bill Phillips, he caught COVID last year, and him and his wife, okay, it was sort of a mild case, and well, not so much a mild case, but they were pretty under the weather for about 2 weeks, but then they got better. And then he didn't get vaccinated because he believed, okay, well, I guess I have the antibodies. Well, no, you only have the antibodies for approximately 6 months tops. And he actually caught COVID this year. Holy God, you should see him. He melted down to like about 145 pounds. And now he recovered, but the first opportunity he got the shot. And you know what? Vaccinations is not a big thing. It's a health emergency. It's not. They don't call emergencies for like if for minor stuff. They call emergencies because people's lives are in danger. So anyway, but getting back to Bill Phillips, he very nearly died, and and then like when he saw himself and like he couldn't, and then like when he finally came out of his coma, and like he actually couldn't even walk. He literally looked like skin and bones. You can freely look that up, but he absolutely advocates people getting vaccinated, which, you know what, even if companies are making buck over it, and trust me, that really grinds my gears. Get vaccinated, because as I said, I've already acknowledged. I know that there are some people who can't get it because they're immunocompromised, and fine, wait for that. Wait for science to science up another, But for the time being, looking back at polio, that's how they got rid of polio. Granted, it's not completely gone, but it's still mostly gone, mostly 95% gone. But no, again, see, this is why we have a democracy, because we elected people to make decisions for us in case of, like a health emergency, a war, something. That's the whole point of why we elected them. And then when they sit there and then they put down these mandates, I'll say this too, because Canada is a socialist country. Turn around and push back at them for not continuing to institute this, the CERB, because if they're gonna shut down my business, I get it. I understand why they're cheesed off, So so fine, reinstitute the CERB. Advocate to your government to suspend rent, give rent relief. That's, again, this is the whole reason why we elected them. And I have to admit, they've been slacking off in the second half of the COVID, which I get it. I understand why people are absolutely blowing up and going to Parliament and saying, hey, I have no job. The thing of it is though, like, of course, there's so many people out there out of work right now. Don't sit there and think, oh, I'm a trucker, I need to, no, don't sit there and blame the government.
I'd like to ask a question of Canadian Spider-Man, and that question is the following. I understand that close to 90% of truckers in Canada are already vaccinated, and the general population of Canada is between 80 and 90%. Can you tell me what the concerns are and what the public, especially in the United States, doesn't understand about the Freedom Convoy situation?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And just, the vast majority of Canadians are vaccinated, absolutely. As many of the truckers are as well. And we were told that if we got vaccinated, we would reach herd immunity and all the sanctions and mandates would be lifted. Everyone 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And we all did that. And we have reached vaccination levels far in excess of any reasonable threshold that any government has ever put down for reaching herd immunity, and they still haven't lifted the mandates. So now there's a lot of pressure force, if you will, economic force, social force, freedom of movement force, which is illegal in Section 7 of the Charter, even in wartime, even in emergencies. The vast majority of people are vaccinated, but now there's extreme pressure left on those that have not chosen, have chosen a different path for themselves, for their own families, for their own bodies. They've chosen something different for themselves. And the government, the people that are protesting, even the people vaccinated, I have many friends that are vaccinated that are opposed to the pressure the government is putting on the small percentage of people.
Truckers.
Of people. This is way beyond truckers now. This is way beyond truckers. Way beyond truckers. Half of the people protesting in Ottawa aren't even related to the trucking industry. This is way beyond truckers now. So the protesters...
They're not there just to support the truckers.
They are there to support the truckers because the truckers are the most... They have the big rigs that can actually force the government to listen to them. We've been protesting for the last year. We've been writing our MLAs. We haven't even been giving the consideration of being asked our opinions from the PM. So these big rigs are an effective tool, and everyone has jumped on. They're the spearhead, if you will. Everyone has jumped on because they will get noticed. They will get attention. And so they are protesting because they don't think it is legal or ethical for the government to force the unvaccinated to get vaccinated. That is their choice of freedom, bodily autonomy, even during emergencies. Even during emergencies, we still have the right to say what goes into our bodies. And I can't fathom anyone disagreeing with that principle. That is the foundation of democracy. We agree it's something called a social contract, and I'm not an expert, but I did study, and we agree to enter into the social contract. I as an individual, you as an individual, we all agree, okay, we're going to live together in a society. We agree to all follow these rules for our mutual benefits, not at the cost of my own personal autonomy over my body. I am not responsible ethically, morally, or legally for anyone else's safety, especially if it puts my body at risk. And there are vaccine injuries. There are vaccine injuries. A person, myself, Rodd is true. The virus is very nasty, very deadly. It's terrible. Now, if I might quickly read, this is from the Abbotsford News, which is Abbotsford is a portion of Vancouver, a section of Vancouver. The Abbotsford News, January 10th. Yes, of the 22,512 new confirmed cases per week, December 30th to January 5th, 82.8% were in fully vaccinated people. Let me repeat that. The week between December 30th to January 5th, 82.8% of the people of confirmed cases were in fully vaccinated people. 2.5%.
Are we to assume then that we're talking about the Omicron variant?
It says COVID, so that's all variations. There are still mostly Omicron. There are still some of the other variants going through. And the key factor is here. The latest hospitalization data are for the 2-week period, January 23rd to January 5th, where there were this many people admitted. They show that 35.7% were unvaccinated. 60.7% were fully vaccinated. So the lies that the mainstream media is promoting and the government on every level is promoting, that this is a plague of the unvaccinated, is outright not true, particularly in British Columbia's case. There might be other provinces, and I feel bad for those provinces. I do. But I'm just reading what's true in British Columbia, and I can't imagine it being much different anywhere else. The majority of people are fully vaccinated. Only 35.7% of the hospitalizations in British Columbia over a 2-week period over Christmas and New Year's were unvaccinated. So how is that The vast majority are 35.7%. I mean, math is still math.
Yes, however,
I'm sorry.
The amount of people it takes to reach herd immunity is much higher.
Than 90%.
No,
90% of
35% were unvaccinated in the hospitals.
That's correct, yes. Yes.
So,
but 90% overall. So proportionally, you're right. Proportionally, it is higher. There's no debating that. Proportionally, it is absolutely higher. And I guess my other thing, too, our governments have had 2 years. 2 years. At this stage, they could have built entire new hospitals and fully trained staff. They've had 2 years and all the funding. There's been no limit on the funding they're allowed to spend.
I'm not sure that's pertinent, Spidey, and here's why. I don't know that any politicians in that span of time could have any knowledge how long that the pandemic would be around. So
we could always use new hospitals, though.
Well, that's certainly true. Although I'm not discounting what you're saying. I'm just saying
that's a good point.
They have no way of knowing how long the pandemic will be around. I'd like to make a follow-up question to you, Spidey.
Good point.
When we're all vaccinated as children against polio, measles, mumps, rubella, etc., having eliminated things like smallpox as children, what is the concern with being vaccinated as adults?
I have more vaccines than most of my friends because I've traveled and have been required. The difference is this is still listed by the FDA as an experimental vaccine until the end of 2023, I believe. Is it? And also, much more importantly, the last vaccine I got was for Japanese encephalitis. The mortality rate of that is 30%, and even if you survive that, you have a 50% chance of getting some sort of physical disability. That's some serious shit.
That's
30%.
Much more serious than what we're talking about here.
And of the 1%, and that's tragic that 1% are dying. That is, and I'm not kidding. I have friends, good friends, that have lost people. Of that 1%, the people that are my age and Rod's age and younger, of that 1%, it's like 1.5% are our age and our fitness. So you do the math. I mean, it's. I had COVID. I had a small cough. I couldn't talk for a week. I streamed with you. You might remember. I'm healthy. I wasn't scared of it at all. If someone wants to get boosters, my taxes, I'll help pay for it. But you're dealing with something that's not polio. This is not polio. That's fear mongering.
It's true that every person out there reacts differently to both the vaccine and the virus. So while what you say is true, it doesn't necessarily address the question.
How so? Okay. What's the fear in getting it?
That we're vaccinated as children against all these diseases. Why is it suddenly a concern that as adults we'd be vaccinated or not vaccinated against the virus?
First short point, the amount of money involved. Second short point, Pfizer has been criminally convicted of unethical and fraudulent business practices, record-breaking, not once but twice in the U.S. There's too much money involved. Secondly, this vaccine has injury rates that are, from what I've been hearing, alarming. The vaccine injury rates, the risk of vaccine injury rates, from what I've researched, outweigh. I've had COVID. I had a cough.
But other people will die from it.
And they should get vaccinated if they feel that. Vaccinated people can still transmit it. If I get a vaccine,
And-
I can still give it to you.
Rod, you have a
And
follow-up?
those who have been, and those who've been vaccinated, or those who have had it, can still have it.
Yes, but it's
But-
still my body, my choice. It always will be.
Why does being vaccinated against the virus impinge on our freedom for anyone that wants it?
Agreed. Yeah.
It's not a rhetorical question.
Yeah. No. I want to know that too. I mean, like, help me understand. I'm not. This is what I've always wondered about the whole freedom convoy. I mean, like, it's about our freedom. But no, it's not. I mean, have you lived in North Korea? Have you lived in Cuba? Have you lived in lived in Iran? No. Anyone who's enjoyed, and I'm borrowing a prepared comment here. Anyone who's enjoyed the rights and freedoms afforded by living in Western society and complains that their freedoms are being taken away has no idea what the loss of freedom looks and feels like. Try living in a regime where actual freedom is not assured. Syria, North Korea, Saudi Arabia, Russia. The list is growing and terrifying. And get back to me on how you feel repressed if you live there as opposed to here. I mean, you're just being asked to take a little jab, couple little jabs. And the other thing is, I mean, like, how do you equate freedom with that? I mean, because no, I'm getting off track here. Yes, oh yeah, getting back to what I wanted to say. The polio vaccine was experimental when they first came out with it. Surprise, it's not anymore, and it worked. So, how do you see that? I mean, I get it. I mean, I also get. I mean, like, if you don't want to go with Pfizer, okay, fine, go with Moderna, go with RNA, or go with Johnson and Johnson. I mean, and I've been, and like, when I went and got vaccinated, they said too, if you don't want this one, we can get you another one. We'll call you when we get the other one in. I was like, no, I'll take this one. So, where's the big thing on freedom? I mean, when you're part of a convoy that basically marched 800 miles, and then, I mean, nobody stopped them, and then here they are screaming outside the Parliament building, hey, we want our freedom back.
So, Rod, you're a trucker. I watched a video the other day of a trucker try to argue with the border authority and finally accepted his quarantine papers and drive on down to the quarantine area. What is the situation on the ground, and what are you hearing from other truckers?
Well, the truckers I know that are basically still working are the ones who are like, no, I'm gonna get vaccinated. That's the whole point. I mean, it's safety protocol. I mean, like, I wear a hard hat when I have to go to certain companies. I have to wear I always have to wear a safety vest. Which you just simply want to be able to make sure that you're seen, and you wear safety boots. Like steel toes. Yeah, and
It's not the same.
Fine, but
you can take those off, Rod.
It's still
you can
safety.
take those off. No, but
Yeah,
you
but
can
it's
take
still
those
You
off.
can
safety.
take them off when you're no longer in a deadly area if something fell on them.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get the
Right.
jab, you can't untake it.
Of course. But now you
That's
see how
the
one
whole
does not
point.
equal the other.
That's the whole point, because it makes your body stronger.
So it's not the same as a seatbelt. It's not the same as a hard hat, because I can choose to now it's off, now it's on, now it's off.
But
can't.
you are
Like,
mandated
once it's done,
to
it's done,
wear
man.
those safety protocols when you are in a dangerous work situation.
But if every time you put on a hard hat, you got an
Otherwise, you're in
injection,
violation, correct?
would you do it?
Okay,
If
I understand.
every time
But
you-
you see, the other thing too is the injection is for safety of others, is not just you, but for others.
If you're vaccinated, you can still spread it.
And
So
still
that's not
contract
true.
But it's not.
So that's not true then.
It's not 100% true, but it's not 100% false.
All right, so let's move along to other questions. It seems to me that if everyone who could get vaccinated did, and again, we don't know who can and can't necessarily, before side effects occur, we could get out from under this thing and return to normal. What am I missing? Again, for either of you.
Go ahead, Rod.
You know what? That's a very valid question, and really, I would want to know that too. In the very same way, I mean, like, sorry, Spidey, I'm still kind of, foggy on your answer to, like, how freedom equates to, loss of, or like how taking a jab equates to loss of liberty.
Choosing what goes into my body and what doesn't. What's to say the government says now you can't eat more than 2 cheeseburgers a week because you're costing the healthcare system?
Right.
I think that's the same. Isn't that the same?
It's still been generally proven, though, that that taking the vaccine makes you safer overall.
And
as I said, take the case of Bill Phillips. Look him up. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, you're probably
right.
You
want to sacrifice that?
I had COVID. I'm healthy. The chance of someone my age,
but COVID and the vaccine have different reactions in
mutate
just about everybody. So the fact that you're healthy, and thank goodness that you are, doesn't apply to everyone. Now, what happens if we can't reach herd immunity because of the holdouts? When is long enough to determine that the vaccines are safe or unsafe?
But we're at 90%. I said that in my
speech. I agree with.
Like, we've already reached whatever herd immunity level that the government said they'd release all the restrictions. We've reached it. We've surpassed it. They're never going to let go. They're never.
Have we?
They're never.
Have we with the
government says 90%.
With the ICUs? Okay,
the government says 90% vaxxed.
Okay, but with the ICUs plugged up with mostly unvaccinated?
Well, did you not hear? I'll read it again, I guess. I'll have to read it again because you didn't listen. 82.8% were fully vaccinated of new cases, and 60.7% were fully vaccinated. So that's
not true. Not true. I want a source on that. But.
Yeah, the Abbotsford News, and that is right from the BC government COVID webpage.
Okay.
And yeah, I've got a link right here. I'll put it in the private chat.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put it right in the private chat. So, I mean, maybe there's other evidence, but that's what I had. That's what I've seen.
Okay.
Right there. I guess I think the main reason where we're getting a loggerhead is I see the choice as to what goes in my body and doesn't as a freedom, as a personal liberty of, and you maybe you don't see that as a freedom. You said you were foggy on my answer as to why that was not a freedom, and I think that is a freedom of what goes into my body and what doesn't.
I'm looking more at the fact that, I mean, like, I'm going to take the fall for others as well, rather than sit back and jump up and down and scream that my freedom is being compromised.
And and I'll support you in your choice. You choose what you want to do, and I will fight for your right to choose that. And I can't travel right now.
I'm adding Spidey's news link into the chat. So if people are interested in following up on the news that he was reporting, feel free to do so. And please continue.
I'm just, Rod, how much more time did you want to? I'm probably not have too much more time.
We've got about 20 minutes.
Actually, I'm getting low on time myself. But I mean, like,
Yeah.
No, I mean, you know what, I'm. By the way, I appreciate this discussion as a whole. Both of you guys, man.
Oh, me too,
really,
man. Me
this
too.
is-
I like the way you talk, man.
yeah.
That's not a that I'm
Well-
not coming on to you.
Debaters will refrain from
I hadn't
making
actually
one
thought
another
about
laugh.
it from that point of view, from that point until Hugh brought that up. But like now, I'm worried. No, I'm not.
But I've been snacking on magic mushrooms too, by the way. So I can't. I don't.
Debaters
They'll kick in
stick
in probably
to the
another
point of the debate,
20
please.
minutes. Yes. Do I?
I'm sorry,
agree?
Cardinal. Where are we?
Uh,
Sorry, we
we're
both
in-
kind of off track yourself.
we're
Yeah, we did.
allowing both of you to answer the questions that have come up, and I'm going to be asking some questions from the chat.
Shoot. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then, let's just get back to those.
What's the big deal? And just get a jab, and we can all go back to normal life, because we've already reached. By the government's own numbers, we've hit 90%. If that's not a threshold for going back to normal, I don't know what is. I don't believe them. They're not going to let go of control. Who's
The
that
current
famous
numbers that
historian?
I've seen as of today are that about 90% of the truckers are vaccinated, and that the Canadian people are between 80 and 90%
Right.
vaccinated. So here's a question for you both. And again, whoever wants to take it first, that's fine. 6 countries came up with vaccines independently of one another. What is the argument for vaccine hesitant people getting the jab? Russia had its own vaccine. China had its own vaccine. The United States has had 3 vaccines. Canada has its own vaccine. What is the argument for vaccine hesitant people getting the jab?
Oh, that I can't answer because I'm, I mean, first of all, I got in line and I understand their hesitancy, I suppose. I mean, this is getting back to what Canadian Spidey's saying about, putting stuff in his body. But I mean, do you think we would have gotten rid of polio if people were that hesitant back then?
Well, and again, with the polio vaccine, this is something that has been given to children so that they don't spread it at school, and they don't have a choice about whether they get it or not. If you don't want a polio vaccine, you don't go to school, and children are mandated that they must go to school. So, again, I will ask the question, why is... Because 6 countries came up with vaccines independently of one another, what is the argument for vaccine hesitant people getting the jab? Or not?
This is not... Comparing it to polio is like comparing apples and oranges. Polio is serious.
Is it?
On a scale much larger. COVID has a 1% death rate, and that is tragic. That is not Japanese encephalitis, yellow fever. That is not polio. Not even the same. It's not. It's just
all right,
not.
then let me change
Not
the
the same.
question. Let me change the way I'm asking or phrasing the question.
So I'm not afraid of COVID. That's why I wouldn't get it. I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of COVID. That's why I won't
I
get
don't know that your lack of fear of getting COVID prevents you from getting COVID, but I'll rephrase my question again. Children of a certain age have to receive vaccines by a certain age. This is a vaccine that, as adults, people are getting up in arms about. Although if they were given the vaccine when they were children, they wouldn't have a choice. They would have to get it. Are the
They were
vaccines, Spidey, that you've taken before you go abroad, are they optional or are they mandated if you travel?
They are mandated to enter those countries. Apples and oranges. Those The Japanese encephalitis has a mortality rate approaching 30%. 30%. If COVID killed 30% of the people that got it, you bet your boots I would have an injection.
So let's do apples to apples. When you
Yes, sir.
travel to countries that require and mandate a vaccine before you go there, and you can't go there until and unless you have had it, what is the difference?
Well, I would choose. I can choose not to travel there.
As truckers can choose to be quarantined, right?
Correct, but this is way beyond the truckers' quarantine now. This is about the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Section 7, our right to bodily autonomy. And that's why people from all over have gotten behind this. It started with the truckers because many of them were going to lose their jobs. Only 10% of the truckers, yes, but that's a significant portion. And it has grown because people don't want to be told what to put in their bodies, even during an emergency. The foundation of our democracy says we are not responsible for other people's safety. Now, if COVID killed 30% of the population, would I be getting a shot? Hell yes, for sure. But I'm just not at risk, and I'm not responsible for anyone's other's safety to the point of me getting something in my body. I'm sorry. I'm just not required by law to do that. Maybe I would be... maybe I would be very... It would be very generous of me just to get it for the sake of others, yes. But if I choose not to do that, I believe that is someone's right to choose not to do that. And that's not going to change. Yeah. I guess that's what it comes down to. And there's just too much money involved. Oh my goodness, there's too much money involved. There's just too much money involved.
In a worldwide pandemic situation, where, at least in the United States, the vaccines are free to the people, not to the government.
No, the government is, your tax dollars are paying for them, I assure you.
Right. So I assume that's the same in Canada.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
So
yeah.
when you say there's too much money involved, we need to make sure that we're talking about to the government rather than the people, and that the way that the various
Yes.
taxes are applied in Canada is different from the way that they're applied in the United States. Canada has a national health system. The United States doesn't. That also applies to the tax situation.
Good point.
And I have another question, and this is for either of you. Is the Freedom March, not the Freedom Convoy, but the end result that I saw today, where people were walking around where the truckers had got to their destination in Ottawa and reached Parliament and were no longer in the cabs of their trucks, but they were marching around. Is that a super spreader event?
I would think so. Let's see what happens in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So you'd both agree that the Freedom March, it's a super spreader event? Or is at least
Yes,
potentially one?
I would.
Potentially, however,
Potentially.
people have the tools available to themselves now. Anyone that is worried about it, you have the tools available to protect yourself. You can physically distance yourself. You can wear a mask. You can get the injections. So there are tools to, if you don't want to. Yes, you have the tools to protect yourself as an individual. But overall, of course, I would think that would increase the chance of spread. Yes. Yeah, for sure. Like the cold, this is evolving more and more into basically the flu with the Omicron the way it is now. It's some some people are calling for this to become an endemic, to end the pandemic, as Sweden has, and they're calling it for it to be endemic now, much like the flu, because we have treatments available, and we have a lesser deadly version. Thankfully, Omicron is as serious as it is. It's not as deadly as its predecessors. So it's worth considering. At what point does this become an endemic, like the flu, which originated from the Spanish flu, which was a pandemic, high mortality rates. I don't know the numbers. So yeah, at some point it's got to become like the flu. It's if you think you're going to stop your citizens from getting it, at this point I know that's New Zealand. That was New Zealand's approach. Didn't really work for them. At this point, we should accept that everybody's going to get this, and with the medical treatment that we have, and with after this got more than a year, I would hope our government started realizing, oh, this is not going away. We better start. I would expect our government to be working on contingency plans after the first 6 months. It didn't. After the first 2 weeks of flattening the curve didn't work, I would expect them to be able to handle this, so that we should be in a phase now where it's not quite the pandemic emergency that it was certainly 2 years ago.
All right. At this
I remain
point,
unconvinced.
I'd like for each of you to be able to make a closing argument. And if you feel that you've already made your closing argument,
I think
then
that was
we can move forward.
Yeah, Rodd, please go ahead.
I'm only cautiously optimistic on those words. So really, my only real statement would just simply be, it sounds good, but I do have some questions. Well, and by questions, I just mean metaphorically, just kind of like, because there's, I mean, because this all comes about from the Freedom Convoy, and just by the way, just as a quick side note, I just wanted to point out, Cardinal, that there's also a blockade on the southern Alberta border, and it's not going away anytime soon either. And it also comes back to our beloved premier, who I mean, down there you would call them governors, but like our premier up here, he is not taking a stance on the blockade, whereas of Alberta, whereas Doug Ford, the premier of Ontario, he has now declared a state of emergency, which gives the police special powers to be able to go in and arrest and then just start packing, send truckers and others just packing or get arrested or face getting arrested. Whereas, the Alberta premier has not. He has waffled on that, and it looks more like the the blockade at the southern Alberta border doesn't look like it's going anywhere anytime soon.
And for those of us that are geographically challenged, that's the border with the United States.
That's right.
Yeah,
yes, I probably should have clarified.
And Rodd, how far is that from? Just so people in our audience who might not know, from Ottawa, what's the distance?
Oh, that's 7 hours
from Alberta.
Oh, that's got to be a good 18, 24-hour drive, I'll bet. Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Based on my own experience, because
like driving time. I've done it 3 times. Yeah.
Yes.
Straight driving time,
yes.
At least. At least. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because
that's
I went to
large distance.
Yeah, because I went to just the border just inside Manitoba 2 years ago. And yeah, that took me a good just about 12, 13 hours. And then that's well over the halfway point to Ontario. But I mean, Yeah, so yeah, I'd say about a good 18 to 20, 22 hours.
Well, I think
But,
one point.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Go
Rob.
ahead.
Sorry.
No,
I was just going to say one.
I was just,
Well, to continue on from what you were saying, and I think we can cheers. And cheers, Cardinal Sin. Holy shit! As an American, you don't care what's going on up in the frozen white north. But cheers for doing this, buddy. I think Rod,
No.
holy shit, you gave me a lot to think about tonight, and I really appreciate you doing this. But I think we can both agree. We want the whole friggin' thing to end, and we both, I think from what I heard, we would love it if Justin Trudeau would act as he's sworn to do, and talk to them. Just talk to them, even if you don't agree with them.
I agree on that.
That's what a leader does. Yeah, because I think it's terrible to have the bridges blocked, and I heard that they've opened one lane now in Windsor, Detroit, so to at least get essential services through. So they've recognized that, hey, we can't, like, there's like medical supplies and shit. So they've said, yeah, we don't want to stop that. We'll definitely let that through. I wish it would end tomorrow. Hell yeah. And the only way that's going to happen, regardless of where it all falls, I want the Prime Minister to do what he said he would do and represent all Canadians, and talk to them. This is only going to be resolved by talk. The truckers, but I can't stress enough, Cardinal Sin, I cannot stress enough, this is not just about truckers anymore.
No, but when you say to them, I'm trying to figure out who the direct object of that sentence is.
Yeah, it's, well, shit. How about, there's several groups involved, but there's a group of Canadian...
You want Justin Trudeau to talk to whom?
Yeah, the head of the truckers,
the protest.
for sure. The protesters, yeah. There's one speaker that goes up on the stage frequently. He's not a trucker, but he also represents them. I can't remember his name. And thirdly, he should also involve... there's a group, and I don't know if our American viewers are aware, but the RCMP are all not all united on this. There is a movement that is significant. It's not the majority, but is significant. There's a group of Mounties, both ex-RCMP officers and present RCMP officers, that strongly believe that the mandates violate the Constitution in a fundamental way, and they've formed a group. They're on Facebook. They're on all the normal social groups. And I believe they're called Stand on Guard, or We Stand on Guard. It's part of our national anthem. We stand on guard. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. So their group is We Stand on Guard. And they're Mounties, active and retired. And so I'd love to have them involved as well. There's groups of lawyers all across Canada that have formed together, and they have a representative. And
so
constitutional
when you
lawyers.
say, I would like Justin Trudeau to talk to them.
Yes, those people.
It seems now like you're sort of broadening that direct object of which I spoke.
Absolutely.
So can you restate your conviction and make it more specific or at least less vague?
Okay. The truckers, the people representing the truckers have with them in their own group a human rights activist who's concerned about the charter violations. There's there's a human rights activist, and there's a lawyer in their group on that. When they do media presentations, they have a trucker who's actually a trucker. They also have a lawyer who's with their group, who represents lawyers in Canada who disagree and think this is a constitutional problem. They have with them a law enforcement officer who represents the group associated with We Stand on Guard. They have a representative with them in their group that represents law enforcement that is opposed to this, as well as a human rights. So when I say the truckers themselves, when they have press conferences, they have that group all amongst them, as well as a doctor. I don't know his name, but there's a virologist, a top science doctor in Canada, and he speaks with them. So that group, they're all speaking together, and yes, it's headed by it's hosted by the truckers, but those groups are all represented in that pod, if you will. So those people, and they're all present at the rally in Ottawa now. If that's
Rodd,
specific enough.
Do you have a follow-up?
I believe the problem lies in the fact that there are too many too many fringe groups who have jumped on the fringe group. There we go, fringe group movement here. You know, because I also happen to be of the thinking though, like no, a lot of I agree with a friend of mine he works in the film industry, and he said, and he's completely against this. You know, and for example, he posted a cartoon of. Basically, it was just a bunch of stick men, you know, but like it was like about like 5 or 6 stick men, and then like there's just a bunch of honk 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 in the background, and it says everyone supports us, you know, and then it shows like a giant crowd on the other side saying, "No, you effing don't," and that's the cartoon that I have to, you know, because again, if 90% of the truckers are vaccinated, that means that the 5 to 10% are not are out of work and are not because they're down there complaining in Ottawa. And you know, I mean, like again, I get it, but I mean, like, stop blaming the government for all your all your ills. I mean, we've you know, I mean, everybody goes along a point where they lose their jobs, and so. You know, I mean, like, stop blaming the government for it. You know, I mean, remember, it's a free society. I mean, it's nice that you've been able to, you know, get your point across, but the government's also not a scapegoat for everything, every ill that befalls our lives. You know, and you know, I mean, one of the greatest attributes of a country is to be able to band together and help those in need. We've lost that we've lost that today. Even if I get it, you know, Spidey would probably say that, well, no, the convoy is bringing people together. I say it's not. Anyway.
Fair enough. So I would like to take this opportunity to again thank both of the debate
Cheers,
representatives,
Cheers,
Canadian Spider-Man and Rodd Thunderheart. And please, if you are in
Cheers.
the audience,
I don't have my beer with me at the moment.
Awesome.
If you are a member of the audience and you learned anything from watching the debate, please enter a 1 in the chat if your position remains unchanged, a 2 if you were swayed to the other side, or a 3 if you remain undecided.
Cool. Yeah, I think we both want the mandates to the border crossings, everything to just having goods trade between between America and Canada, super important. Absolutely. Yeah, I want to be able to get all my Cardinal Sin merch delivered up to me without any blockades. So I think we can all agree to that.
That'd be nice.
It's a good thing you mailed this a while ago.
Yeah.
It'd
be more expensive to mail now, but it wouldn't be impossible like it is to Australia. And I will once again apologize to Mr. MH for his merchandise being slow. But as a matter of fact, the Australian government will not allow shipments from the United States into the country, so we're going to have to continue to wait a little bit.
What's that on the back? What's that on the back there?
So please, again, if you're in the audience, put in a 1 if, as a member of the audience, you learned anything from watching the debate. If your position remains unchanged, you can enter in a 1. If you feel like you were swayed to the other side, you can put in a 2. And if your position remains unchanged or you're undecided, you can enter in a 3.
Rodd, can I ask you a quick question? It's about a joke.
Shoot.
It's about so.
Okay.
I think we both agree. I'm pretty sure we both agree that we would like our leader, Prime Minister, to talk, at least.
Oh, yeah.
Do you find it funny that many people are calling Justin Trudeau Just Run? It's not Justin, it's Just Run.
No.
That's funny. Okay, you laughed. Okay. We both agree that's funny. No,
I told you, I don't 100% like him. I mean, like,
Yeah.
but I mean, like, I'll say this, in light of who was available at the moment, I think he probably was the. I can't believe I'm saying this.
I know, right?
The least of all, of all the people who would mess up the country. I mean, like, I am very strongly against conservatives. Because they're in my mind they're just the rich man's party. The liberals, ultimately, ideally, I would have preferred. Ideally, I would have preferred Thomas Mulcair, because
I like that guy,
I'm not a big fan of Jughead Singh, Judmeet Singh.
No, I don't trust him farther than I can throw him, Rod.
No, but no, and he got in way too fast over. Because Thomas Mulcair didn't get in. Here's the other thing. I mean, like, the NDP had the strongest party.
Right.
at the time.
We have a three-party system in
Justin,
Canada. The NDP being the third.
But I mean, like, when Justin Trudeau got voted in 2015, everybody was just in love with the good looking leader who,
Oh, yeah.
He's,
I voted for the
and all
fucker.
That, but, no, I didn't.
That's
I voted
crazy.
I voted. No,
Yeah.
I voted for Thomas Mulcair. I mean, because Trudeau stole a lot of Mulcair's policies, including legalizing weed. But
Right. Yeah. Well,
anyway,
I am a big fan of that.
I'm blabbing, and we're dragging this.
We're
off.
still waiting for the tally to come in.
No, we're just discussing areas where we agree.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
okay.
We're ending the show with areas we agree on. There you go. See how Canadian is that?
Yeah.
We both agree that Tim Hortons has gone downhill in the last couple of years.
Well, it doesn't help that they're owned by, was it Wendy's? Yeah, I think it's Wendy's.
Yeah, they used to be Canadian.
Yeah,
Now they're not.
they're not
You
Canadian.
mean Wendy's the
They
restaurant?
go under the.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Wendy's the restaurant.
Yeah, they're owned by Wendy's.
Dave
Wha-
Thomas,
whatever-
which
whatever- I can't
originally
remember.
Dave Thomas
I'm
is
not sure. I think it's.
Bob and Doug McKenzie. Cardinal Sin, thank you for hosting us. I hope you have had your fill with Canadian. I don't even like politics. Holy shit.
I
I hope you've had
don't
your-
really either, but I realized that this was a situation that I knew very little about, and as the two of you are better informed on the subject of the Freedom Convoy than am I, and I noticed that you were both on opposite sides, I thought this was a great opportunity to
Perfect
get
opportunity.
at least a sample of the people that I know that were able to speak to it.
Well, no, and I appreciate the opportunity to explain. And it gave me a chance to bring up some of the things too that that probably a lot of people don't know. Like, for example, that British Columbia is actually unceded land which does not fall under the British North America Act, upon which our Canadian Constitution is based.
Where is it? What? All of British
Which-
Columbia?
Yep, the mountains, all the mountains. The BNA Act, British North America Act, only covers
Yeah.
the Canadian Shield and the prairies, and of course the North.
Right. Because the British North America Act was the precursor to what's now our Constitution, and that they
That's
just
right.
they didn't see the Rockies. I guess they didn't notice them at that point.
They didn't see the forest.
They're
for
not
the
important. It's just the Rockies. They're not important, right? actually, coincidentally, that's
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Rockies are. Rodd is on one side of the Rockies, and I'm on the other side.
Oh,
Pretty
thank
much.
goodness for the internet, or this would be a very expensive call.
Oh, dude, do you know how long it takes
Yeah,
a mule
exactly.
to walk from one side of the Rockies to Rodd's house on the other? It's like
Nope.
4 days.
No, yeah, no kidding. Yeah, like 18 hours by car.
Yeah, what are we apart now, Rodd? Like 600 or 700 miles?
Oh,
At
yeah,
least.
about that, yeah. Because you're Okanagan, what, by Kelowna? Or it's not Kelowna.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
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 in that
okay,
general
yeah,
area.
yeah.
Yep. Within
that's a
a
good-
2-hour drive of Kelowna, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
An
and
hour
that's a
if
good
you're
12-hour drive.
speeding.
And as we're awaiting the tabulation of the winner of the debate, so to speak, I would like to thank Fet for Hire for the outstanding artwork that he provided for today's debate.
Ooh,
And
nice.
would also
Yeah.
like to answer, I believe it was Spidey's initial assertion that being that you're both Canadian, the 2 men enter, 1 man leaves.
It's a little
thing
aggressive.
that he put on it, I think, was just there to inject some humor into the graphic.
I did. Okay, yeah. 'Cause, like Rodd
No,
and I
that's-
like each
I
other.
thought that was
Like,
funny.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
it's
and
Spider-Man. I'm not
speaking-
gonna do
Yeah. Speaking of, I don't even really want to have, like, I don't want to hear about a winner. Like, I want to know if people change their position in the. That's what
That's
I really
actually,
want to know.
I agree. That's actually
Like,
what's
I don't
more
care
what I
if
find.
Rodd wins or I win. Like, I
According
don't
to
care.
Gap Stargate, there are 18 for, there's 1 against and 1 unchanged. And I'm not sure how the tabulation or the counting of that from the original is different, because I don't have the original numbers, which is why I was asking for the mods to track that.
That would have been handy.
Yeah.
But no, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
That was good.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you, Cardinal
was.
Sin. Yeah. Thank you very much, Cardinal
And
Sin.
I hope, I hope we educated quite a few people on, on what's going on both sides. I mean,
I want to
that's
look
the-
into this
you know,
mountains of
'cause
British
that's
Columbia.
the other thing. The Canadian,
Part of the,
Go ahead, Rod.
that's actually why. Just as a side note, Spidey, that's the other reason why. If you haven't heard, I mean, like, remember the old prospector thing of it's called staking a claim, right? Well, did you know you can still do that in BC?
around here.
Yeah, see,
Around here that
which
happens all
also
the time.
comes back to because I mean, that's exactly why, because your British Columbia is unceded land.
Huh. No, I've got friends that actually
Unceded,
have gold pants.
Yep, unceded, i.e.,
With a C.
unclaimed land. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
That's right.
I didn't know that. You've studied did you actually study the British North America Act?
yes, it is.
I haven't even, I think I read it in high school, of course. I don't think haven't read it since high school, man. Huh.
I think it's
That
well,
is-
maybe I just have a better maybe because of my better memory, I'm not trying to not trying to burn
maybe.
anything. But I mean, on the other hand, I still actually have over in my bookcase there. I still actually have a copy of the 1867 to 1967 Constitution, which is also why I wanted to actually go on. Which is why I want to. I mean, like, I don't want to sit there and take issue, so I won't. But I was just going to say, like, I'm going to read up on the Constitution again, and
Yeah.
because
That's,
I was
do you know
always
what else I got?
I was always under the impression that when a health emergency is declared, that basically means, okay, well, we'll surrender our rights and then like try to help out as best we can under. But anyway, that's.
So Gap Stargate reports that everyone remained unchanged except for 1 person who went from for to against. So
Yeah.
that would make Rodd the loser and Canadian Spider-Man the winner for anyone who's keeping track. Although I will quote
No, Rodd was the
Canadian
only one that got
Spider-Man,
someone to change their mind, so that makes him the winner.
everyone remained unchanged except for one person who went from for the proposition to against the proposition.
Right. So
So-
Rodd won.
Person that went from
Yeah, but
for
wasn't
the
one,
proposition, which was Rodd's stance, to against the proposition, which was your stance, would make you the winner, Spidey.
Okay.
Wasn't one the for the proposition though?
One was
Yes.
for the proposition, two was against the proposition, and three is undecided.
Either way, man, I had fun. We're both winners. Cheers.
Yeah, everyone's a winner here. It's
Yeah.
basically just
Yeah.
a result in case anyone cares, in case it matters, and as Ivan Ivanovich says, but we love you both.
Oh, thanks.
And that's all the time that we have for tonight's debate. So again, I would like to thank both Rodd Thunderheart and Canadian Spider-Man and everyone in the chat, especially to the mods for all the help that they have given me this evening. And that'll do it for today. So it's Cardinal Sin out.